Good evening, this is Global Affairs Tonight. Today's top story takes us straight to Washington, where President Donald Trump welcomed Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to the White House for a highly anticipated bilateral meeting that could reshape the economic and political future of North America. The encounter, described by officials as friendly yet firm, marks Carney's second visit to the White House since taking office and comes at a time when both countries are navigating shifting trade dynamics, energy transitions, and global security concerns. Over the next half hour, we take you inside the meeting, its tone, its substance, and what it means for the United States, Canada, and the world. As the morning sun fell across the South Lawn, the motorcade carrying Prime Minister Carney arrived at the White House entrance. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and both leaders exchanged smiles before entering the Oval Office. The atmosphere looked cordial, but behind the smiles lay serious business. The United States and Canada share one of the largest trading relationships on Earth, and recent statements by President Trump about revisiting the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, commonly known as the USMCA, had set off a wave of speculation about what changes might be coming. President Trump opened the meeting in his signature style, praising the long friendship between the two nations but emphasizing that America, as he put it, must always come first. Looking across at Carney, he joked, "We love Canada, maybe one day it'll be our 51st state." The room erupted in polite laughter, but the remark carried Trump's typical mix of humor and power play. Prime Minister Carney responded calmly, saying, "Mr. President, Canada values its independence deeply, but partnership with our closest ally will always be a priority." It was a light moment, but it framed the negotiation that would follow, one defined by respect, calculation, and mutual need. Inside the Oval Office, the talks lasted more than an hour. The two leaders were joined by senior trade and economic advisors on both sides. Among the major topics: trade reform, cross-border energy cooperation, defense commitments under NORAD, and strategies to strengthen North America's economic resilience. On trade, President Trump repeated his concern that the existing USMCA framework was, in his view, too complicated and unfairly balanced. He floated the idea of separate bilateral deals with Canada and Mexico, instead of maintaining the trilateral system. Sources later told reporters that Carney pushed back, warning that fragmentation could hurt jobs and investment on both sides of the border. "The strength of North American trade lies in its unity," he reportedly said. "Breaking it apart risks the very stability businesses depend on." When discussion turned to energy and climate, Carney, a former central banker known for his expertise on sustainable finance, emphasized cooperation on clean energy, critical minerals, and cross-border pipelines. He argued that Canada and the United States could become leaders in the global energy transition if they aligned their goals instead of competing. President Trump, while reaffirming his "America First" approach, signaled openness to joint ventures in oil, gas, and battery production. He said, "We can do great things together. We just want it to be fair. The American people have to benefit." On defense, both leaders reaffirmed the importance of NORAD, the joint command that protects North American airspace. With global tensions rising, particularly with Russia and China, Trump stressed that allies must carry more of the defense burden. "We're protecting the whole world," he said, "and some countries have to start paying their fair share." Carney agreed on the need for stronger coordination, noting that Canada had already increased its defense spending and remained fully committed to the alliance. Behind the scenes, officials discussed upgrading radar and surveillance technology across the Arctic, an increasingly strategic region as melting ice opens new shipping routes. After the meeting, both leaders stepped before reporters in the Rose Garden. President Trump appeared upbeat, telling the press, "We've come a long way with Canada. They're great people, doing a fantastic job. We're working on something that's going to be very fair for both sides." When asked directly whether he intended to terminate or rewrite the USMCA, Trump smiled and replied, "We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll have something even better." Prime Minister Carney, speaking moments later, described the talks as constructive, positive, and forward-looking. He said, "Our relationship with the United States remains the most important partnership Canada has. We're focused on good jobs, competitiveness, and long-term prosperity for both nations." His calm tone contrasted Trump's improvisational flair, underscoring the difference in their leadership styles. Analysts watching the meeting say the stakes are enormous. Trade between the two countries reached nearly $800 billion last year. Canada is America's largest export market, and millions of jobs on both sides depend on stable cross-border commerce. Any disruption, whether through tariffs, regulatory changes, or new trade terms, could ripple across industries from automobile manufacturing in Michigan and Ontario to agriculture in the Midwest and the prairies. Economists warn that even the hint of uncertainty can slow investment, but some also believe Trump's strategy could force faster negotiations and modernization of outdated clauses in the existing deal. Inside Canada, reaction to the meeting was mixed. Supporters of Prime Minister Carney praised his composed diplomacy, saying he represented Canada with professionalism and strength. Critics on the opposition benches accused him of being too cautious with Trump, arguing that Ottawa must be ready to push back harder against any threats to the USMCA. In Washington, Republicans hailed the meeting as proof of Trump's deal-maker energy, while Democrats warned that constant renegotiation could undermine investor confidence. Senator Amy Klobuchar said in a statement, "What businesses need is predictability, not perpetual chaos." The media, as expected, seized on the lighter moments. Trump's 51st state remark went viral on social media, sparking jokes, memes, and even a trending hashtag #WelcomeCanada. Canadian commentators were less amused, with one columnist writing, "Canada is a partner, not a province." Still, many noted that beneath the humor, the meeting reflected real progress. Both leaders agreed to create new working groups focused on modernizing trade procedures, coordinating energy infrastructure, and streamlining the border for goods and travelers. A follow-up meeting is expected in early 2026, possibly in Ottawa. Financial markets reacted cautiously but positively. The Canadian dollar strengthened slightly on news that discussions were productive. U.S. and Canadian energy stocks ticked up, reflecting optimism about expanded cooperation on oil pipelines and electric vehicle minerals. Analysts at RBC Capital Markets said in a note, "Markets want stability." If these meetings produce clarity and modernization, both economies could benefit significantly. The statement echoed a wider sentiment that stability between the United States and Canada is essential for continental prosperity. Beyond economics, the symbolism of this meeting carried weight. Trump and Carney represent two very different political eras, one rooted in populist nationalism, the other in technocratic pragmatism. Yet both understand that geography binds their countries together more tightly than ideology could ever divide them. As one senior U.S. diplomat put it, the relationship between the United States and Canada is like a long marriage. You might argue, you might disagree, but divorce isn't an option. During their joint press conference, Trump turned again to humor, quipping, "They've got great hockey players, great maple syrup, and maybe we'll just make them part of the team." Reporters laughed, Carney smiled politely, and the two men shook hands. Behind that handshake, however, was a serious message: dialogue continues. Even amid policy disagreements, the line between Washington and Ottawa remains open, and both nations recognize that their prosperity and security are intertwined. As the meeting concluded, Trump praised Carney personally, calling him a smart guy, a strong leader. Carney returned the compliment, saying that open dialogue is the foundation of democracy. Both leaders then left for private lunches with their respective delegations, signaling that while major announcements may not come immediately, work on the details is already underway. The broader geopolitical context cannot be ignored. With tensions rising between the United States and China, and with Europe facing economic uncertainty, the U.S. is looking to secure its continental partnerships. For Trump, rebuilding strength in North America aligns with his promise of self-reliance and manufacturing revival. For Carney, maintaining access to the U.S. market while promoting Canada's role in clean energy and technology is essential for growth. Both leaders are navigating domestic pressures, Trump from his political base demanding tougher trade terms, and Carney from a Canadian public wary of American unpredictability. Public opinion polls conducted just hours after the meeting showed mixed but hopeful results. A majority of Americans and Canadians said they believed closer cooperation was beneficial, even if they disagreed on specific policies. The most common sentiment, "We need each other." That message resonated across both capitals and reinforced the reality that, despite politics, the partnership remains indispensable. By late afternoon, the two delegations released a joint statement summarizing the talks. It highlighted shared commitments to economic growth, energy security, defense modernization, and environmental stewardship. The statement avoided any mention of tariff changes or major trade revisions, suggesting that the biggest decisions are still to come. But diplomats on both sides described the tone as pragmatic and respectful, a promising sign in a relationship that has weathered its share of storms. As evening settled over Washington, the symbolism of the day lingered. A handshake, a few jokes, and a clear signal to the world that North America's two great democracies continue to stand together, even when their leaders see the world through different lenses. Observers noted that Trump's willingness to praise Carney publicly marked a shift from his earlier, more confrontational posture toward allies. Whether this signals a lasting change or a tactical pause remains to be seen. In the final moments of the press event, President Trump summed it up simply: "We love Canada. We'll get something great done. You'll see." Prime Minister Carney replied, "Our friendship endures because it's based on respect, cooperation, and a shared vision for prosperity." With that, the two men exited the Rose Garden, leaving behind the flash of cameras and the hum of speculation. Tonight, Washington and Ottawa are both cautious but optimistic. Talks will continue, negotiations will evolve, and the complex relationship between these two nations will remain a cornerstone of stability in an uncertain world. For now, one thing is clear: the U.S. Canada partnership endures, tested but unbroken, rooted in history and driven by the promise of the future. This has been Global Affairs Tonight. I'm your host, and thank you for joining us as we explored the full story behind President Donald Trump's bilateral meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, a conversation that may very well shape the next chapter of North American cooperation. Stay with us for continuing coverage, expert analysis, and updates as the details unfold.